The Alpha King was supposed to be dead. The entire kingdom believed it. His enemies celebrated it. His court prepared for it. And somewhere deep inside the cursed northern forest, a clumsy Omega girl was pouring warm water over the fur of a giant black wolf. The beast was larger than a horse, covered in scars, covered in blood, covered in secrets. Every village story warned that creatures like him devoured Omega's whole. Yet the girl only sighed as the wolf splashed muddy water across her tiny cottage floor. "Honestly," she muttered, pushing wet fur from her face, "you're impossible." The monster stared at her, silent, watching, waiting, as if memorizing every detail. The curve of her smile, the softness of her voice, the warmth of her hands. Because beneath that black fur was not a beast, not an animal, not a monster, but the most feared Alpha King in the kingdom. And in less than a month, this lonely Omega would be accused of betraying the crown. She would be exiled, hunted, broken, and the king who swore never to love anyone again would be forced to choose between his throne or the girl who unknowingly rescued his heart. The storm outside howled louder, and destiny quietly opened its eyes. Kael should have left, should have disappeared, should have protected himself. Instead, exhaustion dragged him here, to this insignificant Omega, to this impossible girl. Elara approached carefully. The wolf bared enormous fangs. A warning. She flinched, but didn't retreat. "Okay." She swallowed nervously. "You're scary." The wolf blinked. "Very scary." Another blink. "But you're still bleeding." For the first time in years, someone looked at the Alpha King and saw pain before power. And somehow that frightened him more than any assassin ever could. The storm worsened. Night approached. The temperature dropped. Elara knew what would happen if she left him. He would die. Which meant she spent the next 2 hours attempting something utterly ridiculous. Dragging a giant wolf through a blizzard. Several times she fell. Several times she cursed. Several times the wolf seemed genuinely confused by her determination. Yet, somehow, they reached the cottage. And for the first time in years, Kael found himself inside a home that expected nothing from him. No politics. No manipulation. No fear. Only warmth. Only firelight. Only a clumsy Omega trying very hard not to spill medicine everywhere. Days passed. Then more days. The storm never seemed to end. Neither did Elara's kindness. She cleaned wounds, changed bandages, fed him broth, talked constantly, mostly because silence made her nervous. The wolf listened. Every word, every laugh, every sigh, every lonely confession spoken beside the fireplace. At night, Kael watched her sleep from across the room. Not because he intended harm, because he couldn't understand her. Humans wanted things. Power, gold, status, influence. Elara wanted none of it. She simply cared. And slowly, dangerously, the king began looking forward to each morning. Then came the bath. A disaster from beginning to end. Water everywhere. Soap everywhere. One overturned bucket. One angry growl. One startled scream. And one uncontrollable laugh. Kael had forgotten what laughter sounded like. Real laughter. Not court performances. Not political smiles. Actual joy. The sound hit something buried deep inside him. Something long frozen. Something heartbreakingly human. And for the first time, the Alpha King realized he didn't want to leave. That realization terrified him. Because destiny was already moving. And destiny never asked permission. Then one morning, Elara opened her eyes. The fire crackled softly. Sunlight spilled through frosted windows. Everything looked normal, until she noticed the wolf was gone. Her heart stopped. The room felt wrong. Empty. Silent. Then a shadow moved. Near the fireplace, a man stood there. Tall. Massive. Scarred. Dark hair falling across broad shoulders. Golden eyes glowing softly in the morning light. The same eyes. The wolf's eyes. The man's gaze locked onto hers. Neither moved. Neither breathed. The world seemed to stop turning. Fear flooded her chest. Confusion followed. Then something stranger. Recognition. The man stepped forward.
And spoke.
Elara. Her blood turned cold, because she had never told him her name. Winter descended upon the northern wilderness like a curse. The forest did not simply exist beneath the snow. It endured. Ancient pine trees groaned beneath frozen winds. Branches clawed at the gray sky. Mist slithered between trunks like wandering spirits. Everything felt cold. Everything felt abandoned. Everything except one tiny cottage hidden among the trees. Warm golden light flickered behind its windows. A fragile star surrounded by darkness. Inside lived Elara Ashwyn, an Omega, a healer, and, according to nearly everyone who had ever met her, a disaster. The morning had started with a broken teacup, then a spilled basket of herbs, then a fall into a frozen stream. By sunset, she had somehow managed to lose one boot. She was currently searching for winter-root herbs while hopping through snow with mismatched footwear. The situation felt painfully normal. A violent gust slammed into her. Snow exploded across her face. Elara stumbled backward. Ow! Her basket flew from her hands. Roots scattered across the ground. The forest answered with silence. Then came a sound. A low growl.
Deep.
Ancient.
Wrong.
Every instinct screamed.
Run. Hide. Survive.
Her pulse quickened. Slowly she turned. And froze. Something enormous lay beneath the trees. At first she thought it was a fallen shadow. Then it moved. Black fur. Massive claws. Golden eyes. A wolf.
No.
Not a wolf. A monster wearing the shape of one. The creature was larger than any beast she had ever seen. Its shoulders reached her chest even while lying injured. Scars crossed its body. Fresh blood stained the snow beneath it. One eye remained closed. The other watched her carefully, waiting, measuring, judging. Elara's heart nearly stopped. The wolf could kill her in seconds. Everyone knew stories about creatures like this. Ancient predators, alpha beasts, forest nightmares. The smart decision was obvious. Leave. Immediately. Instead, she noticed the blood. A lot of blood. The beast was dying. And Elara had never been good at ignoring injured things. The wolf growled again. A warning. A threat. A promise. Yet she took one step closer. Then another. The golden eye narrowed. Snow swirled around them. The forest seemed to hold its breath. I know, she whispered. Her voice trembled. But you're hurt. The wolf's ears twitched. No one had spoken to him like that in years. Not since before the crown. Not since before betrayal. Not since before becoming King Kael Veyron. Because the creature bleeding in the snow was not merely a wolf. He was the Alpha King himself. Hours earlier assassins had ambushed him. Poisoned silver blades. Forbidden magic. A carefully planned execution. He survived.
Barely.
The attack forced him into his wolf form. And now his enemies believed him dead. The cottage suddenly felt colder. More dangerous. More real. For weeks, she had cared for an injured animal. Now she was sheltering a king hunted by assassins. A king powerful enough to start wars. A king dangerous enough to end them. And somehow he was sitting in her cottage, drinking tea. The absurdity nearly made her dizzy. So, she hesitated. What do you do? Kael's gaze settled on her. His answer arrived without hesitation. I stay. Elara stared. The room stared. Even the fire seemed confused. You stay? Yes. For how long? Until I recover. Her eyes widened. Here. Yes. In my cottage? Kael looked around. There doesn't appear to be another one. Elara groaned. The king ignored her suffering completely, which was unfortunate, because over the following days, things became significantly worse. For her heart, for her sanity, and for her ability to think clearly, forced proximity proved dangerous. Not because Kael was cruel, not because he was threatening, but because he slowly stopped being terrifying. And that was somehow much worse. At night she discovered he suffered nightmares. Terrible ones. Sometimes she heard him breathing heavily in the darkness. Sometimes she heard furniture break. Once she woke to find him standing outside during a snowstorm, barefoot, frozen, staring into the forest, like a ghost trapped inside his own memories. What happened? The question escaped before she could stop it. Kael remained silent for a long time. Then finally, "I watched my mother die." The words fell heavily between them.
Simple. Cold.
Devastating. Elara said nothing. She merely stepped beside him. No speeches. No advice. No pity. Just presence. And somehow that helped more than anything else. Kael hated how much it helped. Because every day made leaving harder. Every day deepened something neither understood. He found himself listening for her footsteps. Watching her move around the cottage. Noticing when she smiled. Noticing when she was sad. Noticing everything. The realization disturbed him. Kings did not become distracted. Kings survived. Kings ruled. Kings sacrificed. Yet whenever Elara laughed, the world seemed quieter, safer, warmer. And Kael had become dangerously addicted to that feeling. Then came the scouts. They arrived at dawn. 5 royal riders emerging from the snow. The moment Kael sensed them, his entire demeanor changed. The warmth disappeared. The king returned. Cold. Sharp. Untouchable. The soldiers immediately dropped to one knee. "Your Majesty." News flooded the cottage. The kingdom trembled. Nobles fought for influence. Political factions grew stronger. Rumors spread daily. The throne needed its king. Immediately. Any other ruler would have left within the hour. Kael didn't. One day passed. Then another. Then another. Excuses multiplied. Recovery. Planning. Security. Strategy. All technically true. None entirely honest. Because the real reason sat across the table every evening drinking tea. And for the first time in years, the Alpha King dreaded leaving. Elara noticed. She wasn't sure why, but she noticed. And that frightened her too. Because every glance lingered longer. Every conversation felt heavier. Every silence carried meaning. Something dangerous was growing between them. Something neither could stop. Then fate intervened. On the 7th day after the scouts arrived, an elderly royal advisor entered the cottage. His name was Alaric. Old enough to remember forgotten kingdoms. Wise enough to fear them. The moment he saw Elara, he froze. His gaze dropped to her wrist. To the silver crescent-shaped birthmark partially hidden beneath her sleeve. Color drained from his face. The old man's breathing stopped. His eyes widened with horror. And wonder. And recognition. "No." Kael immediately noticed. "What is it?" Alaric stared at Elara, as if seeing a ghost, as if seeing destiny itself. Then the old advisor whispered words that changed everything. "The moon-born mark." Silence crashed over the room. And for the first time since surviving the assassination, fear appeared in Kael Draven's eyes. Because he knew exactly what that symbol meant. And, if Alaric was right, meeting Elara had never been an accident. It had been prophecy. The name echoed through the cottage like a secret that should never have been spoken. Elara. For a moment she forgot how to breathe. The man standing beside the fireplace was impossible. Too large. Too dangerous. Too familiar. And those eyes. Those glowing golden eyes. The same eyes that had watched her from beneath black fur for weeks. The same eyes she had spoken to while changing bandages. The same eyes that stared at her every evening from across the fire. Fear twisted through her chest. The blankets tightened in her fists. The stranger remained perfectly still, like a predator trying not to frighten prey. But there was nothing harmless about him. Everything about his presence dominated the room. The broad shoulders, the scars crossing his chest, the raw power hidden beneath skin and muscle. He looked less like a man and more like something ancient pretending to be human. Outside, snow battered the cottage windows. Inside, silence stretched. Then Elara's voice finally returned. Who are you?" The man's jaw tightened. Something dark flickered behind his eyes. Regret.
Pain.
Memories. Then he answered.
Kael.
The name meant nothing at first. Then realization struck like lightning.
Kael.
King Kael Veyron, the Black Wolf King, the feared alpha ruler of the Northern Kingdom. The man mothers used to frighten children. The king generals obeyed, without question. The king enemies prayed never to meet. Elara stared, then stared harder, then pointed at him, then pointed toward the empty place beside the fireplace, then pointed back at him. You. Her brain struggled. You were. Kael nodded once. The wolf. Her mouth opened.
Closed.
Opened again. Nothing came out. Because how exactly was someone supposed to respond to discovering they had accidentally bathed the king? The memory appeared instantly. Buckets.
Soap.
Wet fur. Her scolding him like an oversized dog. Heat exploded across her face. Oh no. Kael blinked. Oh no. His eyebrow lifted. Elara buried her face in both hands. Oh no 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 no. For the first time in years, the Alpha King nearly smiled. The sight shocked him. Smiling had become foreign long ago. A forgotten habit buried beneath responsibility and war. Yet somehow this ridiculous Omega kept dragging emotions out of him. Emotions he thought had died years ago. Elara finally peeked through her fingers. You are the king. Yes. The actual king. Yes. The Alpha King.
Kael sighed.
Still yes. A long pause followed. Then came the question he expected. The question everyone always asked. The question shaped by fear. Are you going to kill me? The smile vanished immediately. Something cold moved behind Kael's eyes. Not anger. Sadness. Because she sounded genuinely worried. Slowly, he shook his head.
No.
Elara relaxed slightly. Then immediately frowned. Good. Kael crossed his arms. You expected a different answer? Honestly? She swallowed. A little. A strange silence followed. Then, unexpectedly,
Kael laughed.
A low sound.
Deep.
Rough. And used. The sound startled both of them. Because Kael Veyron couldn't remember the last time he laughed. And Elara couldn't remember the last time she heard something so unexpectedly human. The moment changed something. Just slightly. The fear remained. But curiosity appeared beside it. Then reality returned. What happens now? Elara asked. Kael looked toward the storm beyond the windows. The answer should have been obvious. He should leave. Return to the capital. Reclaim control. Punish those responsible for the assassination attempt. Yet every instinct resisted. His wounds remained severe. The poison still lingered. More importantly, the assassins would expect him to return, which meant returning now would be walking directly into another trap. They think I'm dead, he said. Elara blinked.
What?
My enemies. His voice darkened. They believe they succeeded. The journey to the capital began beneath a sky the color of steel. Snow drifted through the air like scattered ashes. The forest that had protected Elara her entire life slowly disappeared behind her as the royal carriage rolled south toward the kingdom's heart. Every mile felt wrong. Every mile felt final. She sat beside the window clutching her small satchel while towering pine trees vanished into the distance. Home was gone. Ahead waited a world she didn't understand. Across from her sat Kael. Silent. Watching. Always watching. The Alpha King's massive frame nearly filled the carriage. Even seated, he radiated power, danger, authority. Yet something had changed since Alaric revealed the meaning of her birthmark. Kael had become quieter, more distant, as if fighting thoughts he refused to share. The moonborn mark, the prophecy, the ancient legends. None of it made sense. Not yet. But Elara could feel destiny tightening around them like invisible chains. And she wasn't sure whether to be frightened or comforted by it. Outside the carriage, armored wolves rode alongside royal guards. The sight should have made her feel safe. Instead, it reminded her that she was traveling toward the deadliest place in the kingdom. The royal court. A place where smiles hid knives. A place where kindness was weakness. A place where people like Elara rarely survived. 3 days later, the capital appeared, and her breath stopped. Massive black walls stretched across the horizon. Golden towers pierced the clouds. Hundreds of banners snapped violently in the wind. The city looked less like a kingdom and more like a living beast. Ancient, powerful, hungry. As the gates opened, thousands of eyes followed the royal procession. People cheered for their king. Soldiers saluted. Children shouted his name. Kael acknowledged none of them. His attention remained fixed on the girl sitting beside him. And, unfortunately, everyone noticed, especially Lady Seraphine Valmont, standing atop the palace staircase, watching, waiting, smiling. The smile never reached her eyes. The moment Elara stepped from the carriage, Seraphine understood the danger. At first glance, the Omega looked harmless. Simple dress, nervous posture, soft eyes. A village girl. Nothing more. Yet Kael exited the carriage immediately after her. Not before her. Not separately. After her. As if ensuring she remained protected. That tiny detail felt like a dagger twisting inside Seraphine's chest. Because for years she had stood beside the king.
Years.
She had survived wars, political disasters, assassination attempts, everything. Yet Kael had never looked at her the way he looked at this Omega. Never. And jealousy was a dangerous seed, especially when planted inside an ambitious heart. The palace swallowed Elara whole. Everything felt enormous. Hallways stretched endlessly. Crystal chandeliers illuminated marble floors. Servants moved like ghosts. Nobles whispered constantly. And everywhere she went, people stared. At first it was subtle. Then it wasn't. The rumors spread within hours. The king returned from death with an Omega. A village Omega. An unknown Omega. A beautiful Omega. The court became obsessed. Whispers followed her through every corridor. Mocking smiles greeted her at every banquet. Some nobles openly laughed. Others pretended not to. But they all shared the same question. Why her? Why would the Black Wolf King care about someone like her? Elara asked herself the same thing. Every night, every morning, every moment she caught Kael looking at her. Because he did. Constantly. Like he was checking she still existed. Like losing sight of her physically hurt. And soon, it did. The first incident happened during a council meeting. Elara spent the afternoon in the royal gardens. Kael remained inside discussing border conflicts. Everything seemed normal, until pain exploded through his chest. The king doubled over. Documents scattered. Advisors panicked. Guards rushed forward. Yet moments later the pain vanished. Without explanation. Without reason. Meanwhile, hundreds of meters away, Elara collapsed beside a fountain. The exact same pain ripping through her body. The exact same agony. The exact same moment. The incidents continued. Again.
And again.
And again. Whenever they remained separated for too long, the suffering returned. Headaches. Nightmares. Restlessness. A strange emptiness neither could explain. Kael grew increasingly frustrated. Elara became increasingly confused. And the court became increasingly afraid. Because ancient records were finally uncovered. Forgotten books sealed beneath the palace archives. Dust-covered prophecies. Lost histories. Legends no one wanted to believe. Until now. The answer arrived during a secret gathering inside the royal library. Ancient candles flickered across shelves older than kingdoms. Alaric carefully opened a weathered manuscript. His hands trembled. His voice barely rose above a whisper. The moon bond. Silence filled the room. Even Kael stopped breathing. Alaric continued. Thousands of years ago, the Wolf Kings formed a sacred bond with moonborn Omegas. His finger moved across faded text. The connection linked their souls. Elara felt cold. Kael's jaw tightened. Alaric swallowed. When bonded, separation becomes suffering. The room darkened. When bonded, emotions become shared. A chill spread through Elara's spine. And when bonded, the old advisor looked directly at them. Nothing in existence can truly separate them. The words landed like thunder. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Because everyone understood the implication. The king and the Omega were not simply close. Not simply attracted. not simply connected. Destiny itself had tied their souls together. And destiny frightened powerful people, especially Seraphine. The revelation destroyed whatever hope she still possessed. For years she had imagined becoming queen. For years she had built alliances, manipulated nobles, positioned herself beside the throne. Then one Omega appeared, and destiny chose her instead. The injustice burned. The humiliation poisoned her thoughts. The jealousy became unbearable. That night Seraphine stood alone inside her chambers, staring into a mirror. Moonlight spilled across her face. Her expression remained calm, beautiful,
Perfect.
until the door closed. Then the mask shattered. A crystal goblet exploded against the wall. Another followed, then another. Her breathing became ragged. Her eyes filled with hatred.
No.
The whisper sounded almost broken.
No.
Years of obsession collapsed into desperation. And desperation became something darker, something dangerous. If destiny wanted Elara, then destiny could bleed. Meanwhile, Elara's life transformed.
Slowly.
Beautifully, the palace that once terrified her began changing. Servants greeted her warmly. Children followed her through gardens. Soldiers respected her kindness. Even nobles started lowering their defenses. Because, unlike everyone else, Elara never played political games. She remained genuine.
And people noticed.
For the first time in her life, she felt seen,
Valued.
wanted. The feeling was intoxicating, terrifying, wonderful. Kael watched every change, every smile, every laugh, every step toward confidence. Pride grew inside him, protective, possessive, dangerously personal. And for the first time, the Alpha King allowed himself to imagine a future that included her, a future beyond war, beyond duty, beyond loneliness. It was a beautiful dream, which meant it was doomed. Because while Elara finally found happiness, Seraphine was already preparing to destroy it. The trap required weeks. Forged documents, bribed witnesses, false messages, carefully planted lies. Every detail perfected, every weakness exploited. And when the moment finally arrived, the kingdom never saw it coming. A royal messenger burst into the throne room during evening court. His face was pale. His hands shook violently. The entire chamber fell silent. Kael rose from his throne. "What is it?" The messenger swallowed, then handed over a sealed bundle of documents. The king opened them, read the first page, and froze. The color drained from his face. Elara's stomach dropped instantly. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Slowly, Kael lifted his eyes toward her. Disbelief.
Shock. Pain.
All visible. The room seemed to stop breathing. Then Alaric reached for the papers. Read them. And turned deathly pale. Because the evidence appeared undeniable. Official letters. Royal secrets. Military movements. Information that could only have come from someone close to the king. Someone trusted. Someone beloved. Someone named Elara Ashwyn. And as hundreds of horrified eyes turned toward her, the Omega realized her nightmare had just begun. Silence spread across the throne room. Heavy, suffocating,
Deadly.
the kind of silence that appeared moments before lives were destroyed. Elara stood frozen beneath hundreds of staring eyes. The royal messenger remained kneeling. The documents trembled inside Kael's hand. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the king looked at her, and for the first time since she met him, his eyes weren't filled with warmth, or curiosity, or protection. They were filled with doubt. The sight hurt more than any blade ever could. "What is this?" Kael asked quietly. The question wasn't angry. That somehow made it worse. Elara stared at him, then at the documents, then back at him. "I don't know." Her voice sounded small, fragile.
Lost.
A murmur spread through the court. Nobles exchanged glances. Servants whispered. Predators smelled blood. Alaric stepped forward, slowly,
Carefully.
as though approaching an unexploded bomb. His aged eyes moved across the pages. Each line seemed to age him another year. military secrets, private council discussions, hidden troop positions. Information only someone close to the king could know. Information now found in enemy territory. The evidence appeared perfect. Too perfect. But nobody noticed that. Not yet. Because fear always moved faster than logic. Kael's jaw tightened. His wolf instinct screamed that something was wrong. His heart screamed louder. Yet another voice existed beneath both. A darker voice. An older voice. The voice of a little boy standing in a blood-covered palace hallway years ago. Watching his mother die. Watching trusted people betray her. Watching loyalty transform into murder. That voice whispered the same thing it always whispered. Everyone leaves. Everyone lies. Everyone betrays. The king hated that voice. But it never truly disappeared. And tonight, it returned. Elara took a step toward him.
Kael.
The entire room froze. Nobody called the king by his name. Nobody. Yet she always had. The habit felt natural. Intimate.
Real.
For a brief second something softened inside him. Then another noble stepped forward. Lord Marrow, one of Seraphine's hidden allies. My king, he said gravely. We cannot ignore evidence of treason. The word exploded through the chamber. Treason. Elara physically flinched, as though struck. Treason? Her voice cracked. I didn't. Another voice interrupted. Then another. Then another. Accusations spread like wildfire. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion. Everyone had suspicions. Everyone had theories. And each one pushed her further away from the king. Further away from safety. Further away from hope. Seraphine stood among them. Silent. Perfectly composed. Watching her masterpiece unfold. The hardest part had been creating doubt. Now doubt was creating everything else. She almost smiled. Almost. Then Kael raised a hand. The room immediately fell silent. Every eye turned toward him. Every fate waited on his next words, including Elara's. The king descended from the throne slowly. Each footstep echoed. Heavy. Final. His golden eyes never left hers. She searched them desperately. Searching for certainty. Searching for trust. Searching for him. But the closer he came, the more distant he seemed. Finally, he stopped before her. Close enough to touch. Close enough to hear her heartbeat. Close enough to feel the moon bond pulsing between them. Pain rippled through it. Sharp. Unnatural. Like something sacred beginning to crack. Tell me the truth. The words barely rose above a whisper. Elara's eyes filled with tears. I am. Kael stared. She stared back. Two souls connected by destiny. Separated by doubt. The room disappeared. The crowd vanished. Only the two of them existed. And in that terrible moment, Kael hesitated. Only for a second. Only for one devastating heartbeat. But Elara saw it. She saw the doubt. She saw the uncertainty. She saw the possibility that he believed them. And something inside her shattered. Not because he accused her. Not because the kingdom turned against her. Not because her future was collapsing. Because he hesitated. The one person she trusted. The one person who knew her. The one person who saw her heart. Hesitated. The pain stole her breath. Kael saw the change instantly. Saw hope die inside her eyes. And regret hit him immediately. But it was already too late. Some wounds happened faster than apologies. Elara stepped backward. One step. Then another. The distance felt enormous. Elara. She shook her head. The tears finally fell. Not dramatic. Not hysterical. Somehow that made them worse. I understand. The words were soft. Broken. Kael's chest tightened.
No.
But she was already retreating. Already withdrawing emotionally. Already disappearing. The moonbond screamed. Neither understood it. Neither could stop it. And somewhere in the shadows, Seraphine finally smiled. That night the palace felt haunted. Whispers filled every hallway. Rumors multiplied. Guards doubled. Doors locked. Nobody slept. Especially not Elara. Moonlight spilled across her chamber floor. Silver.
Cold.
Lonely. She sat beside the window staring at the distant forest, thinking about the cottage, the wolf, the snowstorms, the laughter, the peace. It felt like another life, a dream, one she could never return to. A knock sounded.
Soft.
Careful. She already knew who it was. Kael entered moments later. His expression looked exhausted. Older somehow. More human. For several seconds neither spoke. The silence hurt. I don't believe it. His voice was rough. Honest. Elara looked away. But you doubted. The words landed harder than any accusation. Because they were true. Kael closed his eyes.
Just briefly.
A king could survive war. Could survive assassination. Could survive betrayal. But this was different. Because for the first time, he had hurt someone he loved.
And he didn't know how to fix it.
The realization terrified him.
Love.
The word appeared suddenly. Violently. Without permission. He loved her. The truth hit like lightning. He loved her. And he might already be losing her. Elara stood slowly. The room seemed smaller. The distance between them felt impossible. You should go. His heart dropped. Elara.
Please.
The words sounded exhausted. Not angry. Not cruel. Just tired. Kael remained frozen. Then, finally, he obeyed. And the moment he left, everything fell apart. Before dawn arrived, Elara vanished. No guards saw her leave. No servants noticed. No alarm sounded. The moonborn girl simply disappeared into the darkness.
Gone.
By sunrise, the palace erupted. Search parties deployed. Soldiers mobilized. Messengers scattered across the kingdom. Nothing. No sign. No trace. No Elara. Kael personally tore through forest searching. Days passed. Then weeks. Then months. Still nothing. The moon bond continued weakening. Not breaking. Never breaking. Just hurting. Constantly. The pain became unbearable.
Kael stopped sleeping.
Stopped smiling.
Stopped caring.
The king grew colder than ever before. Crueler. More ruthless. The kingdom feared him again. Because the monster had returned. And this time, nobody could calm him. Not even himself. Meanwhile, war spread across the borders. Enemies sensed weakness. Political factions rebelled. Chaos expanded. Everything deteriorated. Including Kael. Until one stormy evening nearly 8 months later, Alaric burst into the war chamber. His face was pale. His breathing uneven. The old advisor carried a stack of documents. And something else. The truth. Every forged letter had been traced. Every witness exposed. Every lie unraveled. One name appeared repeatedly. One name connected every piece. One name responsible for everything. Seraphine Valmont. The room went silent. Kael stared at the evidence. Then again. Then again. Disbelief gave way to horror. Then horror transformed into guilt. Crushing. Unforgiving guilt. Because Elara had been innocent. Completely innocent. The kingdom betrayed her. The court betrayed her. But worst of all, he betrayed her. The realization felt like a knife twisting inside his chest. Months of suffering suddenly made sense. Months of loneliness. Months of regret. Months without her. Kael lowered his head. For the first time in years, the Alpha King looked broken. Not angry. Not powerful. Broken. Then another messenger arrived. Covered in mud. Breathing hard. Desperate. My king. Kael slowly looked up. The messenger swallowed. There are reports from the eastern mountains. The room listened. The messenger's voice trembled. Entire clans are uniting under a mysterious queen. Silence. A warrior. Another pause. A moonborn warrior. Kael's heart stopped. The messenger continued. They say she commands wolves. The room became deathly still. They say armies follow her willingly. Hope exploded violently inside Kael's chest. For the first time in nearly a year, he could feel her. Not clearly. Not completely. But enough.
Alive.
Stronger.
Different.
The messenger swallowed one final time. then delivered the words that changed everything. "They call her." A slow smile appeared on Kael's face. The first genuine smile in months. The Silver Queen. And somewhere beyond the eastern mountains, a forgotten Omega was coming home. The girl who left the kingdom no longer existed. She had died somewhere beyond the eastern mountains. Died in loneliness. Died in betrayal. Died beneath endless nights where every memory of Kael felt like a wound that refused to heal. And from those ashes, something stronger had emerged. Something dangerous. Something worthy of legends. The eastern mountains stretched across the horizon like the spine of a sleeping god. Ancient peaks pierced the clouds. Silver rivers carved through black stone valleys. Moonlight painted everything in ghostly light. This was where forgotten people survived. Moonborn clans, exiles, wanderers, warriors abandoned by history. And at their center stood Elara. Not the frightened Omega who once tripped over her own feet. Not the lonely healer hidden in a forest cottage. A queen. The Silver Queen. The title had never been claimed. The people simply started calling her that. At first she resisted. Then she accepted it. Then she became it. Because leadership was not about power. It was about surviving pain long enough to guide others through theirs. The Moonborn clans had recognized something within her. Ancient blood. Ancient magic. Ancient destiny. The same silver crescent hidden on her wrist appeared on hundreds of others. For the first time in her life, she belonged somewhere. The transformation had been brutal. Months of training. Months of hardship. Months of learning how to fight. How to command. How to lead. The girl who once struggled carrying her baskets now wielded moonsteel blades. The girl who once feared confrontation now negotiated with warlords. The girl who once believed herself weak now inspired entire armies. Yet one wound never healed.
Kael.
Every night she still dreamed of him. Every morning she still remembered him. And every time she touched the moon bond, pain answered.
Pain.
Longing.
Love.
The bond remained alive. No matter how much she wished otherwise. No matter how hard she tried. Destiny refused to let go. Meanwhile, far away in the capital, Kael stood alone upon the palace balcony. Winter winds whipped through his dark hair. Snow drifted across the city below. The kingdom was dying. Civil unrest spread daily. Border wars intensified. Nobles fought openly. And Seraphine continued manipulating everything from the shadows. Yet none of that occupied his thoughts. Only one thing mattered. Elara was alive. The discovery changed everything. Hope returned. Dangerous hope. The kind that made men reckless. The kind that made kings start wars. Every report about the Silver Queen became an obsession. He memorized them. Read them repeatedly. A warrior leading Moonborn clans. A leader protecting villages. A queen commanding loyalty. The descriptions felt impossible. And yet, he wasn't surprised. Not really. Because deep down, Kael had always known there was more to Elara than even she understood. The world simply forced her to discover it. A sharp knock interrupted his thoughts. Alaric entered immediately. Concern darkened the old advisor's face. "My king."
Kael turned.
"What happened?" The answer arrived quickly. "Civil war." The words fell heavily. Several noble houses had openly rebelled. Military commanders divided loyalties. Entire regions threatened independence. The kingdom was breaking apart. Exactly as Seraphine intended. The Alpha King's expression darkened. Because he finally understood. Everything connected. The assassination. The forged evidence. The rebellion. The chaos. Seraphine had never wanted Elara gone. Not really. She wanted Kael isolated. Broken. Weak enough to lose everything. And she was succeeding.
Until now.
Because now, Kael had something he lacked for months. Purpose. The king looked toward the eastern mountains. Toward her. And made a decision. 3 weeks later, war arrived. The rebel armies advanced toward the capital. Villages burned.
Castles fell.
Fear consumed the kingdom. Citizens prepared for disaster. Everyone expected bloodshed. Nobody expected salvation. The first reports seemed impossible. An enormous army was approaching from the east. Moonborn banners, silver standards, wolf riders, thousands of warriors. The capital erupted into panic, then confusion, then disbelief. Because at the front of the army rode a woman wearing silver armor. Moonlight seemed to follow her. Silver hair flowed behind her. A crescent crown rested upon her head. And wolves ran beside her horse. The gates opened. The city watched. And Elara returned home. The moment felt unreal. The streets that once ignored her now stood silent. The palace that once rejected her now trembled. Every eye followed her. Every whisper stopped. Nobody recognized the village Omega. They saw only a queen. Strong, confident, untouchable. Yet beneath the armor, her heart pounded violently. Because she knew who waited inside.
Kael.
The man she couldn't forget. The man she couldn't forgive. The man she still loved. The throne room doors opened. And there he stood. The world disappeared. Months of separation vanished instantly. The room faded. The crowd vanished. Only the two of them remained. Kael looked exactly as she remembered. And completely different. The king appeared older. Harder. The guilt in his eyes was impossible to miss. Neither spoke. Neither moved. Emotion crashed between them like a storm. Longing, anger, regret,
Love. Pain.
everything at once. Finally Kael stepped forward. One step. Then another. The distance felt unbearable. Elara. Her name sounded like prayer. The simple sound nearly broke her. But she remained still. A queen now. Not the girl who once waited for his trust. Silence stretched painfully. Then she spoke. Your Majesty. The formal title hit him harder than any blade. Because once, she called him Kael. Now she didn't. The realization hurt. Good. Part of her wanted it to hurt. Part of her wanted him to understand. Because wounds didn't vanish simply because someone regretted causing them. Kael lowered his eyes briefly. A king showing weakness. Only for her. I'm sorry. The room froze. The Alpha King never apologized. Never. Yet here he stood. Broken enough to try. Elara's chest tightened. But the damage ran deep. Too deep for simple words. Before either could continue, the palace shook violently. The floor cracked. Screams echoed outside. Everyone turned. Fear spread instantly. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. A guard burst through the doors. Covered in blood. Pale with terror. My king. Kael moved immediately. What happened? The guard struggled to breathe. Then delivered the nightmare. Monsters. Silence. Thousands of them. The throne room froze. Ancient creatures had appeared across the kingdom. Creatures believed extinct. Creatures from forgotten ages. Entire cities were under attack. The chaos erupted instantly. Then another figure entered. Slowly, gracefully, smiling. Lady Seraphine. For the first time, she no longer bothered hiding. Power crackled around her. Dark magic surrounded her like living shadows. The mask was gone. The monster remained. You finally understand, she said softly. The room fell silent. Seraphine's eyes settled upon Elara. Pure hatred burned there, then shifted toward Kael. Pure obsession. Years of madness revealed completely. The kingdom finally saw the truth. The woman they trusted had become its greatest enemy. And she wasn't finished. Not even close. A cruel smile spread across her lips. Then she revealed the final secret. A secret buried for thousands of years. A secret capable of destroying everything, including the moon bond itself. And as Kael and Elara stared at her in horror, the kingdom's final battle began. Yet none of that mattered to Kael right now. Only her. The wolf lowered beside Elara protectively. Golden eyes softened slightly. And for the first time, she saw it completely. Not the king. Not the monster. Not the ruler. Just him. Broken. Terrified. In love. The realization shattered the final walls around her heart. Because despite everything, despite the betrayal, despite the pain, despite the loneliness, she still loved him too. Tears filled her eyes. Kael shifted back into human form slowly, breathing heavily, weakening. The moon bond continued breaking. Time was running out. He reached for her face carefully, almost afraid she would pull away. This time, she didn't. His hand trembled against her skin. A king trembling. Only for her. I was afraid. His voice cracked. The confession stunned the room. Kael never sounded weak. Never vulnerable. Yet now every word bled honesty. I spent my entire life believing everyone eventually betrays me. Elara's breathing shook when I saw those accusations. Pain filled his eyes. I wanted to trust you. A tear slipped down her cheek. But fear won. The words nearly destroyed him. Because kings could survive war. But guilt? Real guilt? That was different. Kael lowered his forehead against hers. The entire room disappeared around them. Only the two of them existed. I'm sorry, he whispered again. This time it sounded broken enough to matter. Outside, the kingdom burned. Inside, two wounded souls finally stopped running from the truth. Elara closed her eyes. And slowly, finally, she forgave him. Not instantly, not perfectly, but honestly. The moon bond pulsed. Warmth returned. Light spread through the cracks. Seraphine stared in horror.
No.
The bond began healing. Impossible. Unnatural. Because the one thing stronger than the sacrifice was mutual choice. Not destiny. Not prophecy.
Love.
Real love. The realization destroyed her. Years of obsession collapsed into madness completely. Dark magic erupted violently from her body. The throne room exploded apart. Windows shattered. Walls cracked. The final battle began. Kael and Elara fought together. Not king and subject. Not Alpha and Omega. Equals. Moonlight wrapped around Elara's body like silver fire. Ancient moonborn magic awakened fully. Meanwhile, Kael became devastation itself. Wolf claws. Golden fury. Protective rage. Together they moved like two halves of the same storm. Every monster that approached them died. Every shadow burned away. And slowly, the kingdom began fighting back. Moonborn warriors joined royal soldiers. Enemies became allies. Fear became hope. Then, finally, Seraphine fell. Not with screams. Not with vengeance. But with emptiness. Her own hatred consumed her. The dark magic she unleashed devoured its master. And as she collapsed upon the ruined throne, her final expression wasn't anger. It was loneliness. The same loneliness she spent years trying to escape. Then silence came. Real silence. The war ended before dawn. Months later, winter returned softly, peacefully. Snow drifted across the northern forest once more. And hidden among the trees stood a familiar cottage. Warm light glowed behind its windows. Inside, Elara laughed quietly as Kael struggled to repair a broken wooden chair. You are absolutely terrible at this, she teased. The former king looked offended. I command armies. And yet the chair is winning. Kael narrowed his eyes. She smiled. The sound of it still ruined him completely. Not because she was destined for him. Not because prophecy demanded it. Because she chose to stay. And he chose to become someone worthy of that choice. The fire crackled softly nearby. Outside, snow covered the world in silver silence. Kael finally pulled her gently into his arms. No throne. No court. No war. Just them. His forehead rested against hers. Golden eyes softer now. Human now. I never thanked you, he murmured. Elara blinked. For what? A small smile appeared on the former Monster King's face. For saving me. Her heart ached beautifully. And somewhere beyond the cottage windows, legends quietly began. The Black Wolf King. The Silver Queen. Two broken souls who chose each other anyway. As the firelight flickered across the cottage walls, the door closed softly behind them. And this time, neither of them ever left again. The end fire crowned crescent moon. The sky turned black before the first monster reached the palace walls. Not night black. Something worse. Something ancient. Clouds twisted above the capital like living shadows, while thunder shook the kingdom beneath it. Screams echoed through the streets. Castle bells rang endlessly. Fire spread across distant rooftops. And standing in the center of the throne room, Lady Seraphine smiled. Dark magic curled around her body like smoke. Her elegant gown shifted unnaturally in the wind pouring through shattered windows. Everything beautiful about her had rotted into something monstrous. Years of obsession, years of jealousy, years of hidden madness. Finally exposed. Kael stepped protectively in front of Elara instantly. Instinct, possession,
Love.
the movement happened before thought. Seraphine noticed. The sight made her expression crack. Even now, she whispered bitterly, you still choose her. Kael's golden eyes darkened dangerously. I never chose you. The words sliced through the room. For a brief second, pain flickered across Seraphine's face. Real pain. Human pain. Then rage consumed it entirely. The palace trembled violently. Stone pillars cracked. Outside, monstrous roars shook the kingdom. Ancient creatures climbed the capital walls. Towering beasts covered in black scales and twisted bone. Creatures sealed away centuries ago. Creatures only forbidden blood magic could awaken. And Seraphine had awakened all of them. Do you know what love does to powerful men? She asked quietly. Dark tears streaked her cheeks. It weakens them. Her gaze shifted toward Elara. Him. Hatred burned. And me. The room filled with deadly silence. Then Seraphine lifted her hand. Ancient symbols ignited across the floor. Blood-red light exploded through the throne room. Elara gasped sharply. Pain slammed into her chest. The moon bond. Something was attacking it. Kael dropped to one knee immediately. A brutal growl tore from his throat. The bond between them pulsed violently. Cracking. Breaking. Elara's vision blurred. It felt like someone was ripping her soul apart with bare hands. Seraphine's voice echoed through the chamber. The moon bond was never a blessing. Alaric's face turned pale. No. She smiled. It was a sacrifice. Ancient magic surged stronger. The Wolf Kings created the bond centuries ago. Kael struggled to breathe. Elara collapsed beside him. Pain consumed everything. Seraphine continued. To preserve the bond, one's soul must surrender its power completely. The room froze. Elara looked toward Kael instantly. Kael looked toward her. Horror spread between them. Seraphine's smile widened. One of you must become empty. Silence. The other survives. The truth shattered the room. Everything suddenly made sense. Why the bond felt consuming. Why destiny clung so violently. Why separation caused suffering. The bond demanded sacrifice. Always had. Seraphine stepped closer slowly. And when the sacrifice happens, her eyes gleamed. The surviving soul becomes vulnerable enough to control. Kael understood immediately. This had always been her goal. Not love. Ownership. She wanted the Black Wolf King broken completely. Obedient. Empty. The realization ignited something terrifying inside him. The Alpha King rose slowly to his feet. Dark power exploded through the room. Golden eyes blazed brighter than fire. Bones cracked violently. Shadows twisted around him. The wolf emerged. Massive. Ancient. Terrifying. The Black Wolf King returned completely. Servants screamed. Guards stepped backward. Even seasoned warriors trembled. Kael's monstrous form towered above everyone. Protective fury radiated from him like heat. And every instinct inside the beast focused on one thing. Elara. Protect her. Protect her. Protect her. Seraphine laughed bitterly. There he is. The monsters outside roared louder. The capital was collapsing. People were dying. The kingdom stood moments from destruction.